Thanks for having us here tonight to present an update on the Public Works Facility Development Project. Eric, you can go to the next slide. I'll start with a quick agenda. I'll do introductions. I don't want to belabor some of these points because I know that this project, which has started really 6 years ago, there's been a number of updates for the board over the years, but I think it's important to revisit some of these talking points, especially for the public and people that haven't been obviously part of the process, or maybe didn't see previous presentations, or maybe could use a reminder. We'll go through why is a facility needed, the benefits of a new facility, site selection, and why we're proposing to build at Shadbush Road. And then we'll give a project status update, primarily on everything we've worked on for the last 11 months, essentially since last special town meeting, and then a project timeline from today going forward. Go to the next slide. So of course, Town of Nantucket DPW is the owner of the project. With me here tonight to present is John Como from Weston & Sampson, who is our design consultant. John's the project manager and lead architect on the project. Also on the project team are Kelly Cardosa from Avalon Consulting Group, who's leading our permitting charge. She has a lot of experience working on projects on Nantucket. She's been invaluable as we've moved this project forward. Additionally, our OPM is Vertex Companies. I'm sure it's a name you guys may recognize. It's John Lemieux, who's also the OPM for the Our Island Home project. And they're also another colleague of John's is the OPM on the Waite Drive seasonal housing project. And then additionally, as a sub-consultant for Weston & Sampson, TCI does the independent construction cost estimating. Go to the next slide. So, again, just kind of a refresher, why do we need a new facility? The original appropriation for this project was 2018, so like I said, it's kind of been a 6-year project already. The town and the DPW conducted a feasibility study and then site alternative assessments, which led to the decision to move to Shadbush Road. We're very proud of the progress we've made in the last 12 months, and ultimately, to go even further back, the DPW was constructed in 1978. A couple of buildings were built, and others were moved to the site. They are well past their useful life, and the biggest thing is that the facility is much undersized for our department today, certainly for our department of tomorrow. If you think of Nantucket in 1978, it's a far cry from today's Nantucket. The island's grown, our responsibilities have grown. But our facility has only minimally grown, and we're at the stage where further growth on the site is not attainable. Couple points to make: no indoor storage for fleet vehicles, equipment, or materials. Indoor workspaces are limited and congested. For example, we have an admin office that was built in 1998. So no, it's not the oldest building on the island, but we have multiple open positions, and I have one desk left. I don't know how I could be fully staffed when I don't have the space to hire much needed positions in our department. And then an overarching theme for all of our facilities: nothing's code compliant, certainly not energy efficient. And a lot of our spaces are being simultaneously used for unrelated activities. There's a lot of congestion and turnover, and it's kind of exhaustive for us to constantly work in a space that takes a lot of work before we can even get to our work. You go to the next slide. So a couple slides here in a row that have a lot of photos just to illustrate. I think a lot of people, and I've gotten this recently when folks have come out to the DPW and say, I didn't know you guys were over here. I go to drop my trash off. I thought you guys were over there. In the top left, you have our operations workshop, but it's not much of a workshop. It's also used for vehicle and equipment maintenance and storage at certain times of the year, but again, kind of going back to that simultaneous use. You can see in the middle, this was just taken the other day. That's our lawnmowers at the end of the season going in for some maintenance. But in the top right, we affectionately call this structure this old house. This was a former school building that was moved to the site in the late 70s. It's a 24 by 16 structure, so it is approximately 1/4 of the room that we're in right now. And it's the home of our facilities division. That division takes care of 40 or over 40 individual freestanding structures for the town of Nantucket. There's a table saw inside in the middle, and there's very little room to walk around it that you'll see on the next slide. To highlight the photo in the middle on the bottom with the trucks, the building on the right is our foreman's offices, and on the left is what we call the treehouse. The treehouse is lumber storage for our facilities crew. It's undersized for even that need, but on top of that, when there's inclement weather, and we're building boardwalks and benches and things like that, that space is used even though there's no electricity, there's no heat, there's certainly no ventilation, et cetera. So both of those buildings as well were once school classrooms that were then moved to the DPW. Our lines and signs foreman, Ray Sylvia, actually had school or had a class in the tree house, as we call it. I kind of joke when I say this, but it's kind of true that the whole DPW site is essentially a take it or leave it. It was take it from here and go leave it at the DPW. But nothing's changed, and certainly nothing's been done to bring these buildings up or enlarge them, which is ultimately probably the biggest goal of this project.
Were they the buildings behind Cyrus Pierce? Do you remember? Yeah, all right. I was in those.
Yeah,
it's a long time ago. Yeah, in the back.
And yeah, if anybody has, this will be a fairly lengthy conversation, or presentation. So if there's any questions along the way, feel free to just jump in because you may forget what your question is by the time we get done. Sorry, go to the next slide. Another big reason for a new DPW is to get our fleet vehicles and equipment stored indoors. As you see here, we have millions of dollars worth of fleet vehicles, equipment, plows, spreaders, tons of stuff stored outside. I guess I would say the theme of these photos is rust, unreliability, very high replacement costs, and also no resale value, no trade-in value. It gets to the point where they're unusable, and we basically just beg people to take them and get rid of them to create a little more space that we can actually use. Next slide. Our DPW is also, unfortunately, kind of an unsafe and unhealthy work environment in general. Top left is our central fleet garage from the mezzanine. Very poor indoor air quality, both in that space and in other shops, especially our carpentry workshop areas like the treehouse that I mentioned, or this old house. There's no dust collection, so indoor air quality is certainly a major concern. In the top middle, you can see fluid storage that's really not up to code or other standards. On the top right, you can see that's also the inside of that yellow operations workshop. It's maybe a little hard to see in this photo, but there's operations equipment, tree maintenance equipment up against the wall. There's a bench for a workspace. But on the right, you can see that there's a pallet full of fluids stored there. And then on the left, you have benches that are being built over the winter in advance of the summer. Somehow those benches continually get run over and go missing. And so once again, we have kind of 3 or 4 different uses of this little space at the same time. The bottom right is the inside of this old house. Don't mistake that for a healthy work environment that's taken at a wide angle. It looks a lot more spacious than it certainly is. But there's a huge table saw in the middle, and there's really no room to walk around it, which is why those guys typically work outside around moving vehicles and equipment, and it's fairly dangerous. In the middle, on the bottom, is a shot from our lines and sign shop. That's Ray Sylvia's home over at 2 Fairgrounds. I don't know if people know this. We have over 7,000 signs on Nantucket, and they come every summer. We certainly get a lot of requests for more signage on bike paths and when there's curb cuts and other things. And for Ray to do what he does so well, he needs an effective space to do that. You can see here it's almost impossible to walk through this space without tripping. Now, Ray knows it so intimately. I think he could probably do it with his eyes closed, but it's super congested. And on top of that, having Ray check in as a foreman in Mattakit every morning, get the crews out on the road, and then drive over to 2 Fairgrounds is incredibly inefficient, especially in summer when we're going down Quaker or Pleasant through traffic, Mid-Island, through the Rotaries to 2 Fairgrounds just so we can get something at 8 o'clock, an hour after work starts, and then head out. Especially if that thing's, that task may be in Mattakit, and he's heading all the way back before he can actually get started. And then on the bottom left is another shot of our central fleet garage. Again, taken a bit at a wide angle, but that's the sewer department's Vector truck. It's a little hard to see, but there's about a foot, maybe 2 of clearance on all sides. Just a really unsafe working environment, trip hazards, and things can get knocked over. And so, actually, Erica, you can go to the next slide. As I mentioned before about storage and a pallet just being out in someone's workspace. We have extremely limited and makeshift storage spaces. To go back to the whole DPW is a take it or leave it. We have 9 individual tractor trailer, trailers and shipping containers on the site out of necessity because there is nowhere to store anything. In the very top right, there's a fairly new shipping container that came our way. And I kid you not when I say that there were employees fighting over what division was going to be able to use it. Because whoever doesn't get to use it is basically tripping over their own stuff all day. In the bottom left, there's 2 18-wheeler tractor trailers right out in front of the DPW office. The 2 photos to the right show the inside of those trailers. One is used for tire storage. If you look closely just to the left and the right of that photo, there's tires in the other trailer and outside because there's still not enough room. And then on the right, or that middle photo on the bottom, again, more benches that were made in the off-season when we had the opportunity, nowhere to put them in the depths of the winter, and so they end up in here. There's a trailer, second photo from the right on the bottom. That's where we store our mowers. Our mowers are $15,000 to $20,000 a piece. We have 8 of them, so it's $140,000, $150,000 worth of equipment that goes in a trailer that doesn't have a door. It's blown over in a storm before. Thankfully, it wasn't full of mowers at the time. But it also is then the home of mice, rats, birds. It becomes inhabited by animals. It takes a ton of effort every spring to get them back up and running so we can get them out on the road once the weather turns. And then on the right, you can see another trailer with a very dilapidated shed next to it with stairs with no railings, because if there were railings, you wouldn't be able to open the doors. So kind of out of desperation, this is what we do, and we're happy to make the most of what we can. But really, with all of the value of our assets and how important it is for us to be efficient and serve this entire island community, storage is a very important factor or part of our facility in general. You can go to the next slide. And then lastly, we have very substandard employee facilities. It's poorly insulated, there's no air conditioning. Heating is very ineffective and unreliable in the winter months. In the top left, you can see the men's room, and it's shared by about 30 employees. So if I'll go clockwise from top left around, the next photo is hand-me-down furniture from other departments, or literally from the take it or leave it, in the operations workshop, tucked in the corner. As I took this photo, there was a vehicle behind me getting serviced. This is where our crew meets every morning to sort out their tasks, figure out what we're doing for the day. And they also do safety trainings there. Really not a great facility for our employees and their development. Don't need to talk about the lockers, but right to the right of that is Dale Gary, our incredible town arborist. That's his office. Once again, you can see there's axes, there's a chainsaw on the floor, there's rakes. It's not much of an office, it's more of a storage closet with a chair and a desk that's covered in work supplies. Bottom right is a bit of a, I guess you can call a break room. It's where the time clock is, but very much undersized and just kind of falling apart. And then, not to be all doom and gloom, we make the most of what we have. So the middle photo on the bottom and the one on the left is from our Christmas party. We had a great Christmas party. It was a lot of fun. But even getting vehicles and equipment and pallets of fluids and things out to make room for a Christmas party is a big effort, and the same thing afterwards. So going back to that kind of too many uses for one undersized space. Erica, you can go to the next slide. And so to back up a little bit, this is an aerial view of our site. Surrounded in yellow, or outlined in yellow, is really the usable area. We have driveways that go out to Matticat, north of the site, northeast of the site, and in the southeast, you can see the driveway that goes over to the landfill. This scattered layout of the site creates safety issues. You can see there's vehicles parked kind of all over the place. Our admin office is in the northwest. the big gray building in the southwest is our central fleet garage. And then there's the salt shed and our operations workshop and the treehouse and all these things kind of scattered about. This creates a situation where our crews, contractors that work for the town, solid waste haulers, and even members of the public drive through this facility all day long. As I mentioned, our carpentry efforts are largely done outside. They've said that it feels like they're working in the middle of the road. It's really just unsafe to have people even just walking from building to building all day long. And there's, like I said, vehicles and equipment and trailers getting loaded and all of that stuff happening. Just creates a lot of unnecessary conflict. In short, we've just entirely outgrown our facility. Actually, Erica, you can go to the next slide. I'll turn it over to John Como, our project manager for benefits of a new DPW facility.
Thank you, Drew, and thanks for having me. Actually, Eric, could you go back one slide back to the site? Thank you. I want to start here because I want to say a little bit about the site. It's very typical for a DPW site that over time has grown organically from, the highway barn building where they maintained vehicles. Over time, as a need arose, they solved it. This year, they built a new workshop, or they brought in an old building from the school to act as a storage building, and they bring in trailers, but then they push kind of out the boundaries of the site without thought to kind of comprehensive site circulation and so forth. And you often end up with a collection of buildings scattered about, parking scattered about, outdoor vehicles, storage, where you find room for it. This site in particular is kind of hemmed in by the landfill to the south and a number of wetland areas. So there's really nowhere for this site to grow. Next slide, please. So what are the benefits of a new facility? It solves a lot of the issues that Drew just touched upon in his presentation about the existing facility. A new facility will bring all these vehicles that are sitting outside inside into a semi-heated space. So there's a number of benefits for that. Vehicle and equipment longevity, reliability, reduced maintenance time, reduced time, downtime for employees doing unnecessary maintenance on vehicles, moving vehicles around because they're not properly stored. Indoor air quality has improved tremendously because of codes that weren't in place when this building was originally constructed. It improves the health and safety of the employees of the DPW. For instance, now to deal with noxious fumes, they open the garage door. There's a fan in the wall that they turn on. It doesn't do very much. A new facility would have automated gas detection that would trigger ventilation, exhaust the space. So you're not subjecting DPW employees to an unsafe environment, internal environment. Next slide, please.
Actually, John, can I just jump in real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Erica, can you go back? There's a lot of little things too, like the very bottom, the benefit of additional multi-purpose and meeting spaces for the town. We overutilize this room, the training room upstairs, 131 Fairgrounds, for a lot of different meetings. We hold tree advisory committee. Parks and Rec is largely remote or hybrid, and cemetery commission meetings. They happen in our, what we call a conference room, but it's at the end of the hallway. It was a break room. It's got a kitchenette in it. When we hold meetings in the middle of the day, people come in to heat up their lunch, and everyone can hear everything we're talking about at all times. So there's no way for us to have private meetings, and it's very disruptive to other employees. Interestingly enough, very, very recently, we had a pre-bid conference for the new waste services agreement. This is a $150 million contract over the next 10 years, whatever it ends up being. We had contractors lined up all the way down the hallway, excuse me, listening to George Aronson's preamble before the site visit. Just kind of incredible how we were jammed in there like sardines. Really just not a professional facility. At a new facility, we'd also be able to not only hold proper meetings, but abutters meetings for transportation projects, other things. It has more use than I think a lot of people may realize. The last thing I'll say is, I think a lot of people have heard, speaking to 131 Pleasant, that was the ugliest building on island. It's at least sixth, because we have the first 5 at DPW. So anyways, John, you can
Thanks,
be
sir.
back at it.
Next slide, please. So we thought it might be informative to show some examples, photo examples of, these are all facilities that Weston and Sampson has designed, Department of Public Works facilities. On the top left is a multipurpose room that serves as a muster room. It can serve as a training room as well. It could also serve as a meeting room. Going to counterclockwise, nice, clean, high bay maintenance areas with lifts, natural light, a pleasant work environment, a safe work environment. On the right is Burlington's DPW facility, a part of it. A new site would do a much better job of managing stormwater runoff, is environmentally more compliant than what we have now. Bottom left is indoor storage. So it's a large, open bay, flexible space. You can program it as you like. It's sized for 10% larger than the fleet size of about 60 vehicles that the department has now, which are currently mostly sitting outside and rusting. So at the end of the day, or at the end of their life, these vehicles are not rusting in place, that they have an extended life and they actually have a resale value at the end. So you're saving millions of dollars, where a 6 and 10 wheel dump truck can cost $300,000 fully equipped. You're getting an extra 5 years out of that, and over the course of the life of the facility, you're saving millions of dollars. A new facility, like bottom right, would have a solar-ready roof that can, with at least with the current Inflation Reduction Act, the town can receive those benefits for purchasing, or get the rebates for purchasing solar panels for their building. Additional energy produced could be stored and then sold back to the utility with battery storage on site. Next slide. More examples of some interior shots of, on the top left, vehicle maintenance has overhead fluid distribution reels. Again, natural light and indoor air quality is improved tremendously. Mezzanine storage space, which is safe. It's currently was built in place, I believe, by the DPW staff. On the right is a vehicle wash bay. That also is important for extending the life of the fleet. Washing in a responsible and environmentally responsible way, the vehicle, so runoff is captured and treated before discharged. Another example of a large kind of muster meeting room, vehicle storage garage, and then in juxtaposition to the slide that Drew showed earlier, a kind of rational, safe, and code-compliant fluid storage room. Next slide, please. Other benefits include, energy efficiency. This building is quite large. It's 63,000 square feet. There isn't natural gas on the island, and it lends itself very well to geothermal. Geothermal can get rebates from the utilities, so you can get government and utility rebates for making good sustainability decisions. Some of these are mandated by energy code, but some are also elective. So we're going to decide, and work with the town to, and the sustainability director in town to kind of work to get the best rebates and cost effectiveness for the facility. Next slide, please. Turn it back to Drew for the site selection. Why Shadbush?
Thanks, John. So going back to that 2018 annual town meeting appropriation, after that, the town and Weston and Sampson conducted a feasibility study to evaluate the viability of building the necessary facility at the current location. As a result of this study, it became evident that alternative sites should be assessed for locating or for potentially relocating the DPW. 10 Sun Island Road and 1 Shadbush Road were evaluated as part of that assessment. This analysis concluded that both 10 Sun Island and 1 Shadbush Road Those locations were significantly better suited to support a new modern DPW facility. However, market rate lease payments that the town would be required to pay to the Nantucket Memorial Airport eliminated 10 Sun Island Road as a practical alternative. And thus, 1 Shadbush Road was chosen as the site for the proposed new DPW facility in early 2023. It's worth noting that while we're on this slide, the majority of the current DPW site sits at elevation 8, the same elevation as the intersection of Union Street and Francis Street, not too far from Washington Street, which is often flooded. This map shows the DPW site in Mattocket being flooded at least once every single year in 2070. That's based on current conservative projections. The responsible thing to do, if we're going to put this much money into such an important municipal facility, is to build it in a resilient location or build the current site up in order to make it resilient. So while I cannot stress this enough, we are not moving because of sea level rise and coastal inundation projections, but it would be irresponsible to ignore that entirely and not consider the cost implications. You can go to the next slide. So as far as the 188 Mattocket Road site, there's certainly a lot of limitations. As we highlighted earlier in that figure of the site that was kind of outlined in yellow, it's the size and shape of the available land is not suitable for the facility that's truly needed. You'll see on the next slide, anything we propose to do there would require us building in wetlands buffer zones, which are actually recently updated as part of our local wetlands regulations. It doesn't really accommodate the necessary growth of the facility to better serve Nantucket. All of that also comes at a significant additional cost to rebuild on the current site. Like I said, the responsible planning and design efforts would require that the site and Mattocket Road be raised. All existing utilities and infrastructure would need to be reconstructed. And building on our current site that's already kind of overcrowded would require temporary facilities during construction, which is estimated to be 2 years. I'm not sure exactly where we would even achieve that. And relocating something like Central Fleet that has, in addition to the fluids, but vehicle lifts and other specialized equipment is, I'm not going to say impossible, but extremely difficult. As we're finding out when we get into a lot of these different projects, town land is kind of hard to come by. It also comes at, the temporary facilities come at a very, very high cost. And again, these costs are not, would not be required at 1 Shadbush. Again, building into the wetlands buffer zones would require wetlands mitigation and enhancement and potential site cleanup costs. Anything you touch, you got to address it as part of the project. A couple last little things to note. Just a reminder, we're located in the Mattocket Harbor Watershed Protection Zone B and immediately adjacent to Long Pond. Staying at 188 Mattocket also does not improve our proximity or our response time to most of the island. If we were to rebuild at the 188 Mattocket Road site, it also does not allow for the very few useful buildings that still have some life in them to be repurposed, whether that be for solid waste or relocating the NRTA maintenance garage in the interim. And then lastly, it absolutely, and going back to the temporary facilities discussion, it would immensely disrupt our daily operations throughout construction. So 2 years of us being inhibited, I don't think would be well received by anybody that lives, works, and visits here. The big takeaway is that rebuilding at 188 Mattocket would yield a lesser facility at a higher cost. We would pay more and get less for it. You can go to the next slide, Erica. This is a little visual of, at a minimum, the extents of the Mattocket Road and site areas that would need to be raised. Like I mentioned, this is almost all at elevation 8. Some of it's actually a little lower. This is a considerable area to bring in fill, build it up to the elevation needed. And it's a little hard to see in this slide. It'll be illustrated better on the next, but there's wetlands literally all around us in the landfill to the south. I've talked to John and other members of our design team. When we talk about raising the site, we're not talking literally just vertical upwards. You're really talking about filling in wetlands. And as we know, not only it's at least a permitting nightmare, if not entirely unfeasible. Erica, you can go to the next slide. So this is from the town's GIS, and these are mass DEP GIS layers that show the mapped wetlands around the current DPW site. So the brown buildings in the middle are the scattered buildings on our site. The light bluish green, light green, dark green areas are all DEP mapped wetlands. As you can see next to our central fleet garage, kind of in the southwest, the wetlands come right up to the back of the building. I would not be the least bit surprised if behind the operations workshop and foreman's office and the treehouse, if we had a wetland scientist map that the green area kind of to the right, northeast of those buildings would be larger than currently is mapped. And of course, there's no green to the south because that's the landfill. So really just highlights the inability to grow outwards, and we most certainly can't grow inwards. As far as coastal resiliency and the right way to plan and design these projects, the absolute last thing we want to do is look back in 20, 30, or 40 years and wonder why the heck we did what we did. Why did we not do this? Why did we not do that? We wasted all this money. And we're very much moving forward with this project with the future in mind and making smart decisions. Erica, you can go to the next slide. But as part of the site selection and analysis of the three locations, the Weston and Sampson team did put together some concept layouts. As you see here, it's kind of a haphazard, not haphazard, but an inefficient layout of the building. It is smaller than what we're proposing out of necessity and inability to make this any bigger. It may be a little hard to see here because it's a projector on the screen, but there's incredibly poor circulation, driving and otherwise, like around the building. And then it actually does limit our outdoor storage space. And make no mistake about it, there's plenty of materials that we do store outside: sand and gravel, roadway millings, riprap, crushed stone, curbing, brick, all that stuff. That does still stay outside. And so it really does not allow us the ability to build the facility we truly need. And we don't want to build a building that, again, in 10, 20 years, we say, oh my God, we're already outgrowing this space. That was irresponsible of us. Erica, you can go to the next slide. So as far as the 10 Sun Island site, this parcel is 6.2 acres. What we're currently on is 5.5 acres. It's only 0.7 acres larger. So similarly to 188 Mattocket, it's not really suitable for the facility that's truly needed. Most importantly, it's land owned by the Nantucket Memorial Airport. It would require a land lease at market rate. They've made that very clear to the town. Based on $1.03 per square foot, that equates $14 million over the next 50 years, which is a very conservative estimate from 2023 and is not adjusted for inflation. So that would be the $1.03 holding true for the next 50 years, which I find very hard to believe would be the case. Adjusted for 2.5% inflation, the total lease payments would exceed $22 million. And I put an asterisk here just to remind myself to mention that if the initial lease payment was $1.55 per square foot, and I think Tracy actually just mentioned as part of the yard sale program that land is kind of typically going at $2 a square foot. If it started at $1.55 per square foot and then adjusted for 2.5% inflation over 50 years, we're looking at a total of $33 million in lease payments to the airport. A couple little things in addition to that. It would be located off Nobody Farm Road. I don't think I need to explain to anybody that it probably would not be well received to be adding vehicle traffic to Nobody Farm Road. We have 49 positions at the DPW, so that's about at least 100 trips per day, just people going to and from work. Never mind our day-to-day operations, multiple trips back and forth in between different activities and kind of switching gears from one task to the next. It was laid out to have a driveway out to Milestone Road, but that would require reconstruction of the Delta fields. So you'll see on the next slide, the driveway basically goes through one of the baseball fields, and readjusting the site would be quite costly. And then lastly, this site, being west of the airport, is in the Zone 2 Wellhead Protection District. So from a geothermal standpoint and other environmental, water quality reasons, certainly not ideal to be located in that protection district. Erica's already on the next slide. Thank you. No, I was saying you beat me to it. Thanks. Again, we did do a conceptual layout of this site, similarly to 188 Mattakit, although this is a nice rectangle and a little bit cleaner. You can see there are some circulation challenges. There's a lot of arrows going on this site. If you worked clockwise from the entrance, which is in the southwest of this site, vehicles would go through the parking lot, past the fuel island, around the building into kind of a courtyard area and be a little bit landlocked. Down in that bottom area, below the purple square to the right of the green square, there would be a ton of vehicles constantly in conflict with one another, whether it's picking up materials from the storage bins, going in and out of the workshops, or going in and out of the central fleet garage. It's just very congested. Additionally, on the north side of the building, there's a canopy, but it's limited in order to accommodate the fuel island and have proper clearance for vehicles to circulate around the building. In the northeast, it's gray. It might be a little bit tough to see, but that's the salt shed. So vehicles would have to come in either off Milestone Road, down a long driveway to the salt shed, or come into the facility and basically travel all the way through the facility to get loaded up with salt during a snow and ice event. Very much an inefficient layout, and would, again, come with a much greater cost than what we're currently proposing. You can go to the next slide. So, why the Shadbush Road site? I don't want to get into limitations because there really are none. There's a lot of benefits to moving to One Shadbush Road. It's a 27-acre parcel. It is town-owned. We wouldn't pay lease on it or lease payments on it. It's undeveloped. The construction costs for developing the site are substantially lower than anywhere else. It's really just clearing and grubbing, and then it's a blank slate ready to be built on. The other big benefit of this is pretty much the whole site would be at elevation 50. Again, Mattakit is currently at elevation 8, maybe 10 at the most, up at our office building. We are first responders. I know people typically just think of police and fire, but when there are natural disasters, we respond. We're out on the road, snow plowing, responding to downed trees, floods, other things. It is paramount that we design a facility in a location that not only increases efficiency and all of these other things, but that is resilient and allows us to respond. We respond many times with police, with fire. And so, being where we're proposing to be located here and at this elevation is just about ideal. Again, it's centrally located off of Milestone Road, I'm sorry. So to give people an idea of where this is, if you're not familiar, you would go down Milestone Road, turn on Bunker Road. In the very northwest of the site, under the number 1 on the screen, is the VFW. So you would go past the VFW, turn left, head past Strang, and then down at the bottom of the screen there is Community Sailing and the new Harbor Master building. And then at the end of the cul-de-sac, exactly, Erica, is where the driveway would enter. Additionally, this is outside of coastal flooding areas, especially up at elevation 50. It's outside the Zone 2 Wellhead Protection District. We would be able to achieve all on-site mitigation for satisfying natural heritage conditions, and I'll get into permitting in a little bit. And more than anything, we'd be able to continue operations at our existing facility until a new one's built. No disruption to our current operations and what we do all day, every day. It's not bulleted here, but I also think it's important to note that there's a real big benefit to this site being on the major trucking route. When we get deliveries, currently big trucks get off the boat, they get into the rotary, and then go past Stop and Shop, up Prospect and out to Mattakit. They obviously don't take Cliff Road. So it actually creates more heavy traffic through a very congested and busy Mid-Island area. In addition to that, Mass DOT is currently working on 4 projects on Milestone Road to enhance that corridor, specifically from the rotary to Bunker Road. The first of which is the Pulpus at Milestone intersection work that we actually expect to be starting pretty soon. Subsequently, Mass DOT is planning to do rotary improvements at Milestone and Old South, and then potentially a rotary installation at Nobody Farm. And lastly, widening of Milestone Road from the rotary out to Bunker Road. So again, really no better place for the DPW to be, especially in the industrial park, with contractors we work with utility companies we work with. I think simply put, we just really fit in the neighborhood here. Erica, you can go to the next slide. And John's going to walk us through the project status update.
Okay, thanks, Drew. So when we started schematic design, we actually started with a review and confirmation of a program that was developed in the original study in 2018. Had a few different DPW directors. Drew's taken over. We met with Drew beginning of the year and his staff with Charlie and with Paul and others, interviewed staff and refined that program. So what we ended up with was a program with every space identified, offices for administrative staff, workshop spaces, and then we worked to determine the right size for those. We developed room data sheets for each space in the building, which were the building blocks of the floor plan that we put together in the schematic design phase. We had our engineering staff come out, do geotechnical investigation of the site. It's a great site. There's nothing but sand there, and it's what we expected, but we found out that that's the case. We did a survey. We moved into kind of site plan, conceptual layouts. We worked on a number of those and came up with the right location for the building, circulation, and placement of other site amenities such as the fuel island and material storage bins. At the end, we put a package together which included site civil plans, architectural plans, floor plans, elevations, building sections, industrial equipment plans showing all the lifts and equipment that's required in a DPW facility, what would be moved over from the existing and what would be required to be purchased as part of a new facility, and gave that to our independent cost estimator, and they returned a cost estimate based on that. Now, that's a schematic design estimate. There's still a lot of assumptions and contingencies in there. That would get further refined as the design progresses. Next slide, please. Again, the steps that we've completed, just a list of those. We did the program review and confirmation, site development survey, geotech investigation, schematic design estimate. We completed the schematic design phase. We recently met with the Historic District Commission and had a preliminary review with them, which went, I thought, very well. We got some very valuable input and suggestions that we're working on now. Ongoing MIPA natural heritage permitting. Next slide, please. To say this is the final concept that we started with, and I'll turn it over to Drew to talk about that.
Thanks, John. Yeah, this is where it kind of gets fun, right? As John mentioned, we looked at literally every position, their daily operational needs, space needs, and it was a lot of different little building blocks. We pushed them together, came up with a size, and then started looking at the layout. This site plan, I think, really showcases the efficiency of what we're proposing. What you see in the yellow is employee facilities and administration offices down on the bottom. In the middle, the green rectangle is our workshops and also plumbing and fire protection and the geothermal heat source. And then the purple rectangle at the top is the central fleet garage. Next to that is the wash bay up at the top, the little square or rectangle. And then outside the white is just a knockdown pad for the heavy debris off of vehicles and equipment. And then the big kind of salmon color is the indoor vehicle storage, vehicle and equipment storage. And then in the very bottom left, you can see the salt shed. Next to the vehicle storage would be a canopy for stuff that can stay outside under cover, but not truly indoors. In the northeast and northwest corners, you see we'll have, or proposing to have material storage. So that's your sand, gravel, riprap, crushed stone, all of that type of stuff. And having ample storage for that stuff to maintain all of the gravel roads and respond during emergencies is paramount. And right now, our ability to have that in stock on site is extremely limited. Obviously, we'd also have the fuel island on the east side. And I like to use this example when I explain to people kind of how much we enjoyed doing this process and how pleased we are with the result. So at the end of the workday, someone would drive down Shadbush Road, come into the site in the southwest corner. They go past the parking lot. They drive up the driveway. They drop off stuff at the workshops if need be. They fuel up. They stop by Central Fleet if you got a check engine light on. Otherwise, you wash your vehicle, you circulate around, and drop it off in the vehicle storage garage for overnight storage. In the morning, you load up and go. Additionally, I like the efficiency of where the salt shed is located during an emergency or snow and ice event. Vehicles come in, turn left through the first gate, immediately get loaded up, and go right back out on the road. So they don't need to drive through the depths of our facility to go reload and get back out on the road in an efficient, timely manner. Erica, you can go to the next slide. And this is where it gets even more fun. Again, those little building blocks, my office, Paul's office, Charlie's office, shared workspaces, conference rooms, we very carefully considered exactly what we need in this facility, what we should have, and also very much what we don't need, what we don't, want. And this was a really enjoyable effort to carefully and very thoughtfully review adjacencies. Who is where, who's next to what, not just in terms of office spaces, but where do employees come into the facility. Near the muster room, there's locker rooms there. You can work your way from the time clock, then back to your workshops. There's a hallway that runs the entire length of the building that connects the employee facilities, which is the orange area, and Central Fleet. Going back to my comments earlier about our facility being scattered and people walking outside and walking across a UPS truck that's coming in and a trailer, that's going out for some job. The beauty of this is most people can remain within the building in a safe in a safe location, but still interact with other divisions and parts of our department. So the yellow area in the bottom left would be the administration office area. The orange is employee facilities, including the muster room, which is that bigger room I was saying for public meetings, trainings, full departmental stuff. Right now, when I want to address my entire department, we just stand in the garage. We don't have a place to do some of the more formal things that we should be doing. The green areas in the middle, as I mentioned, are the workshops. So from left to right would be the facilities workshop. It's 2 garage bays. Next to that would be the lines and sign shop. There's a little room in the back for the vinyl graphics that we put on town vehicles and for ready to print and make signs. The gray area in the middle is HVAC, plumbing, fire protection. The nice thing about where that's located, that gray area in the middle, is right in the middle of the facility. It creates really efficient energy usage for the heating and cooling of the facility. To the right of that area would be a Parks and Rec and tree workshop dedicated to that division. And then to the right of that would be an operations workshop. It's important for me to note, because it's not really highlighted here, but if you look very closely, there are stairs in each of those workshop areas. In the back half of all of those green areas would be a mezzanine. The mezzanine is a great place to store the materials, especially seasonal storage. We would have a hoist and trolley that runs above head, so if a truck pulls in, you can lift something up, or if it's on the ground, you can lift it up and put it up on the mezzanine for permanent, appropriate storage. It allows us to be more efficient. We have the tools and the materials and things that we need to do our job at our fingertips instead of constantly looking for it. Mezzanine space, while I'm on the topic, is generally very cost efficient. It adds useful square footage to your facility, but really at a low per square foot cost. So also in the Central Fleet garage, in addition to first floor tire and fluid storage and parts, there would be a mezzanine above the Central Fleet garage. So kind of on the left side, Erica, you can see the stairs. Yeah, kind of that whole area would also have a mezzanine. So that Central Fleet garage would have 4 bays, 2 of which are drive-through bays. These are designed to be long enough to bring the ladder truck from the fire department in, the sewer department's Vector truck, which I showed earlier, can barely fit in our current facility. We would most definitely set this up so that we have purpose-built spaces. So in the workshops and in Central Fleet garage, if you're doing a tire rotation or tire, replacement, you shouldn't be across the entire facility from where you store your tires and things like that. So it creates an opportunity where it's safer and much, much, much more efficient. On the right, that little light blue is a wash bay. It can fit 2 vehicles at the same time. We opted to not have the permanent kind of raised structures. Inside, we opted for movable, kind of mobile stairs that lock. But they're a far cry from what we do right now, which is get up on a old playground, a wooden playground piece of equipment that we took the slide off of, and they climb up there and hose the vehicles down. And then lastly, the vehicle storage is a huge part of the square footage of this building, but would also have a mezzanine right where Erica was just moving her cursor on the bottom, but below that, yeah. That whole entire area would have a mezzanine for valuable storage. Again, seasonal storage, maybe the spreaders, and other things. But each of those parking spaces in the vehicle storage garage, the truck's plow would be right in front of it year-round. So it's always there when you need it, but we're not trying to find places or which goes with what and what's the condition of this place, or I'm sorry, this plow when it comes August, September, and we're gearing up for snow and ice. The mezzanine storage is something that's just incredibly valuable. And I forgot to mention this earlier when I was talking about our limited makeshift storage, but I always like to give this example of how limited our storage is and what a disservice it does to our operations. We have an incredible program of providing beach wheelchairs to residents and visitors throughout the summer. We leave 2 at jetties, and otherwise we'll deliver it to a beach on demand. We'll bring it to your house. In the winter, we store those in the bathroom at Dionis Beach and in the bathroom at Tom Nevers. Before we lock them up for the winter, we put them in there, and then we come back in the spring. So it takes about a day to get these beach wheelchairs to them. Their winter storage, kind of hibernation locations, and then it takes a day to go pick them up in the spring, which is incredibly inefficient. It's not great for the bathrooms, it's not great for the beach wheelchairs, but it's certainly better than leaving them outside. So the thought of having places to store extremely valuable and high cost items like that would just be incredible. So anyways, we're very, very pleased at the adjacencies and how this facility came out, both outside and inside. Erica, you can go to the next slide.
This is a chart that shows the DPW for Nantucket, the proposed size of the facility, kind of relative to other communities' DPW. And it's really a kind of based, the size is a factor of number of employees and number of vehicles. That's the main driver of the size. So you can see the green bar is number of vehicles. The blue bar is number of employees. It just kind of is a check for us to see that we're not too far below or above kind of the right size of the building. And this so far we're right on target. Next slide, please. Continuing on with this status update, and I mentioned the HDC review in August. These were an example of some of the boards that we put together for them. We're starting to now model the building, look at fenestration, arrangement of building elements, entryways, and looking at building materials. Again, we had a great presentation with 5 members of the HDC, and we're going to meet with them again in a few months. Next slide, please. More elevational images from that presentation. This kind of shows the overall size of the facility. So when you look at the south elevation, that's what you at the bottom. That's what you'll see as you're driving in. The portion of the building to the right, the low kind of roofed building, is the admin and employee facility building, and then on the left is the exit way for the vehicle storage garage. But then behind that is the majority of the square footage, the majority of the building, which is kind of tucked behind. So it doesn't, you don't see all of the facilities kind of hidden behind the front building mass. Next slide, please. And everyone's favorite topic. Do you want to take this, Joe, or do you want me to talk about it?
Sure. Yeah,
So I could just say we did an independent cost estimate. We had a lot of contingencies in there. We factored in the cost of building on the island, unfortunately, which is, I think we came up with 20% at this point. And then when we looked at it, right now we're at 67 million. We haven't started to look at cost value engineering yet, but this is the schematic design starting point.
Yeah, thanks, John. I think that was a great slide, previously that showed the graph of the size of our proposed facility in comparison to other municipalities. Again, our process was evaluate every position, evaluate every function, build what we think we need, and then afterwards, we then looked back and said, basically, are we crazy? Is this too big or is this too small? And I know that a lot of people may think 63,000 square feet, that's incredible, that's huge. Yeah, it's a good-sized building, but there's a lot of data to support that that's exactly what we need. We are also talking about a facility that would serve this island community for 50 to 75 years. So again, we're certainly not going into this process thinking, get what we need now and we'll outgrow it in 5 or 10 years, no big deal. That would be very much not prudent of us. So the breakdown here is essentially civil site work for 1 Shadbush Road is about $9.3 million. That includes utility work and roadway improvements on Industry Road and Shadbush Road. The salt shed itself would be about $1.5 million. Fuel Island, $1.3 million. And the new building itself, the 63,000 square feet that we've outlined, would be $55.6 million. Again, to John's point, it's a very preliminary cost estimate. A couple things we haven't spent a ton of time on yet are the value engineering, other ways that we can look into saving money. It was kind of build it out, see where we're at, and then it will be refined as part of the design development process, which is forthcoming. We also, as far as the HDC, we got a lot of really, really positive comments on the facility, its function, but also its aesthetics. But we wanted to get kind of their take on the facility before we moved too far forward on some things that were less important to us. We're primarily focused on a building and a facility that functions. I think it'll just so happen to look really nice as well. But we all got a lot of really good feedback. So as part of design development, we will refine these costs as we further a lot of the details about the facility. I think it's also worth noting, and I know I talked a lot earlier about additional costs at 188 Mattica Road and 10 Sun Island Road, but they're kind of outlined here. It's probably in the range of 15 to 17 and potentially more at Sun Island, $1 million more than if we were to build this at 1 Shadbush Road. 1 Shadbush doesn't come with the additional costs that the other two sites do. And so I think that's a really important thing to remember, because if you hate $67 million, I'm sure you hate $82 or $85 million a little bit more, because I certainly do. You can go to the next slide. So I'll touch on permitting pretty quickly. I know the board's certainly heard this a couple times over the last 6 or 7 months. But this is a 27-acre site. It is priority habitat for Lepidoptera, which is a protected moth species. Thus, natural heritage requires a 2-to-1 mitigation requirement. So in short, we can build 1/3 of this site, or build on 1/3 of the site, and the other 2/3 would go into a conservation restriction. One thing that we are actively working on in discussions with natural heritage is essentially getting extra credit for those 18 acres. We've had very open conversations about the challenges Nantucket faces in terms of our open space and not getting credit for Conservation Foundation, Land Bank, other entities, and that we're technically shrinking every year. And a lot of projects, many town projects, will require mitigation. So essentially, it was first proposed, and Natural Heritage would say basically, you can build 9 acres, the other 18 acres goes into a CR, don't look at it, don't touch it, and you're good. We've proposed that if we do land management on it, we'll get another 18 acres of credit. That will allow the town to further the Our Island Home Project, Coastal Resilience Plan projects, even things like the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan. There are sewer extensions and other utility projects that are in priority habitat, and this allows us to develop a list and get essentially, like I said, that extra credit that can be used in the future to allow some of those other projects. So it's a really good opportunity, and Kelly from Avalon has been spearheading that effort, which is great for the town, not just for this project, but a lot of projects. Go to the next slide.
So they're giving you extra credit. So you would normally need 18 acres. They give you another 18. Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Make sure my math is right.
Yeah, and on that slide, it did they're very particular about where your mitigation is and what your mitigation is for. So if we were to do something in a coastal dune resource and mitigate using upland, habitat, then you wouldn't get that 1-to-1 ratio. You might get kind of partial credit. But it's been really positive, the conversations we've had with Natural Heritage, because I think, the town has seen it as part of the solar project. We're seeing it as part of this project. It's just going to keep coming up. And we've got to find a way to get ahead of these types of challenges every time we want to try to accomplish something as a community. So I just wanted to kind of highlight what will this look like on the site, that 9 acres of usage. So the DPW site is outlined here in red. That's 7.9 acres, and then adjacent to it in yellow is 1.1 acres of undeveloped area. I will say we unfortunately got some bad news at the beginning of last week. The plan was for the Nantucket Hunting Association to build a shooting range jointly with us at this parcel, but they've decided to not proceed with the town in this joint development and project. So it does throw a wrench into our plans. Kelly from Avalon had the permitting paperwork and narrative and all that stuff ready to go. And so we, as a town, kind of need to figure out what we are going to use that 1.1 acres for. And actually, Erica, you can go to the next slide. And that's the reason we need to figure that out now is because of segmentation concerns, or plan to do something in the future if we're willing to wait 5 years. So segmentation, Kelly would certainly explain it much better than I, but essentially Natural Heritage does not allow you to do the bait and switch, which is I'm going to build this here and get my permit, and then halfway through that construction you say, actually, I'm going to do something over here. They want to look at everything holistically, and that's what they expect of municipalities and even private developers. So we need to approach them now with a plan, and if we don't have a plan for that secondary usage, then it's basically tied up for 5 years. Nothing can be done with it. Of course, the plan for the last 6 months was to develop this site jointly with the Hunting Association, but now we'll have to look into other potential uses. The town does have a lot of needs. So, in working with the select board and town administration, we will have to have those conversations and identify what we're going to do, whether that's indoor, outdoor recreation, employee housing, future DPW expansion needs, even things like an impound lot or whatever. There's a lot of things that we just seem to not be able to find appropriate town land for. And so, we'll need to have those discussions before we file with MIPA and Natural Heritage. But our approach is basically to site all the developable areas such that all the DPW mitigation can occur on the one Chatbush site. And then we'll submit a permit application to allow for accommodation of whatever that secondary town or community need is adjacent to the DPW.
When does that MIPA get filed?
We were hoping to file already, and we're looking to file soon. So it's not quite on the critical path yet, but you'll see on one of these upcoming slides, the plan is to have permits in hand, a low bid in hand, and then go to town meeting with a price and the ability to move forward so that we're not the next project that gets approved and then says, actually, I need more money. And then you have that kind of back and forth, and eventually you get less and pay more. And that's certainly what we're trying to avoid. So I would hope in the next, I don't know, a couple weeks, maybe a month or two, we have our MIPA permits filed. There's a 45-day notice period prior to filing. We will file those permits. It takes a number of months for them to review and get back. And then the town has to have the conversation with Natural Heritage about the conservation restriction, who's the landholder or the CR holder, discuss land management requirements. There's a lot of stuff to work out. And so we don't want that to be the thing that kills our progress on a project of this importance. So you can go to the next slide. John, you want to walk through next steps?
Sure. So we're ready to roll into this is a timeline, a proposed project schedule moving forward. We're moving into the next phase, which is design development and public outreach. We want to educate the public on the benefits of this new facility, why it's needed. Drew, I think, has already set up the project on the webpage for the town. We're looking for supplemental design funding in the spring, completing the construction documents by the end of the summer, bidding it in the fall, and having a bid price in hand for a special town meeting in the fall of 2025. The anticipation is that it's 18 to 24 month construction schedule from award of contract to the low bidder.
Yeah, I think if we moved in fall 2027, this might be one of the most expeditiously done projects by the town, especially something of this magnitude. Erica, you can go to the next slide. And then, as John just mentioned, we do have a project webpage. I think Florencia is online to kind of give us a quick walkthrough of that. She's been fantastic in helping me develop a really beneficial webpage that we plan to update over the coming months, and we move through design development and have more to share with the community. Florencia?
Yeah. Hi, Drew. Thank you. Good evening, select board members. So I'll be very quick. I will share my screen, which I think that you're all looking at right now, right? Sure.
No.
Erica, I am trying to.
Here, I'll bring it up.
Can you? Okay.
Hold on.
Okay. Yeah. Great. So you can just sit there for a second. So the need for new DPW facility webpage is divided into 3 sections. If you go down a little bit, scroll down a little bit, you will see the current DPW facility and its challenges. Like it was explained in this very lengthy presentation. I will not add to what Drew and others have said. But for people interested in learning more about the current facility, please visit that page. And then the 2 other sections are where are we at the moment, things that are being done now with the purpose of having a new DPW facility, and what we hope will be the new DPW facility. So we just started this website. We'll be adding information to it, but in each of these dedicated pages, you will find timelines. So on the current DPW facility, the process for that we are at the moment, and then if everything happens like we hope, how long will it be until the new DPW facility is available for the DPW team. So we encourage the community to visit this page. It can be accessed through nantucket-ma.gov/DPW campus. The QR code shared here, it's on the town website. If people visit the DPW webpage, they will find it on the left side, our engage page. So multiple places where the community can go to learn more about this project. And they can also subscribe. So if you scroll down right there, so you can sign up for notifications. And this is our engage website. People interested in learning more, not only about this project, but any other project or initiative that town departments are working on, are encouraged to sign up here. So just name an email is enough, and you'll be getting emails when we update these pages with news and updates. And that's it for me.
Thanks, Florencia. Yeah, I think the website is a really good tool to really cover where we're at now, right now as a facility, what we're working on, and then what we're proposing. And ultimately, I really, truly hope that the public looks at this as their facility. This is a facility that is desperately needed so we can better serve the community, respond better to the needs of the community. And so we want people to be involved in the process. If anyone has questions and suggestions and things like that, hopefully they get those answers through the website and enable them to stay up to date with the project and remain involved. So at this time, if you guys have any questions, I'm more than happy to continue talking, as if I haven't done that
Any
enough.
questions from the board? No? Thanks, Drew. Very comprehensive.
Bored you to death.
No, not at all. I was actually
Thanks.
fascinated, and I've been involved all along. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, terrific. Okay. Libby, do you guys want to say something? Sure. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Steve Holgate, for the record, President of the Nantucket Hunting Association. I just wanted to let a lot of community members know, a lot of people may not realize that this is the same site that the previously approved and partially permitted shooting range project was slated for. Some people think that that project, since it was approved at town meeting, they had already been half constructed or whatever, and they're surprised when they find out there isn't one. And I just want to explain to them where this project went and why. I mean, Drew's presentation explained where the town's priorities went. Obviously, the town, for the reasons you saw, has decided that the DPW compound replacement takes priority over shooting range, at least for this site. I do want to let the supporters of the shooting range project know that the town did offer a shared site concept, which we met with them numerous times over many months, many hours. I appreciate the town work group for working with us on that. I also want to thank my committee members for all the efforts they put in. So basically, the shared site concept included a 1.1 acre site for us to try to make a reduced scope shooting range project on adjacent to the DPW project. There were many things to work out. We came up with a footprint. We came up with some buildings, layouts, floor plans, elevations, et cetera, that would squeeze as much of our old shooting range components into it as we could possibly get. So the support from the shooting range folks is very greatly appreciated. It's been 20 plus years we've been working on this project. We had a planning board permit. We had gone through land court. We had spent over about $600,000 on consultants in defending the permit in court. We also had a National Heritage Endangered Species permit written, ready to go with pre-approval from the staff at National Heritage. So we had gone a long, long way, and I want my supporters to know that. One of the other things that kind of had us walk away from the shared site, the main deal breaker, if you will, was we had to, support this project in full, which we were fully willing to do, get behind the DPW project, and likewise, the town was going to be behind our shooting range component of it, and a lot of the costs of the preliminary building, the ancillary equipment, the utilities, et cetera, road improvements were going to be on the town, so that was a big benefit to us. The deal breaker for us was the agreement. Just seemed like there was no guarantee we would ever be able to enter into a lease or break ground on a project. There was too many unknowns. We had to get behind and support this project in the beginning, and through the town meetings all the way to 25 and then possibly even 2027. And if for other reasons the DPW project didn't happen, whether it did not get the voter approval or other changes happened along the way, we would not get our shooting range project. And we tried to get that change that we could continue on the 1.1 acre, regardless of where the DPW project went or how long the DPW project took. And that was never really granted, so we decided to walk away. And I just wanted to let everybody know that, the community to know that, and my supporters to know that. And thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
And I'd like to comment, I really appreciate all the time and effort that was put in by the team that was meeting. We started in April, met weekly, really trying to bring this, but there was never, I think what the Hunting Association needed that the town couldn't provide was a way to separate the two projects, the timelines of the two projects. And given the permitting requirements of the site and so forth, we just couldn't, we couldn't separate that, and the Hunting Association felt that they couldn't bear the risk of the timeline or things changing again. And we really, this board was very much wanting this to work, and I'm personally sorry that it's not going to work out, because we really wanted to. We recognize that the shift on the use of that property was not ideal, and we really wanted to try to make it work in the way that we could. And I think it's unfortunate that it's not going to work out that way. And we recognize and understand your needs and your community's needs in terms of timelines that we couldn't guarantee. And And that is the risk of being tied to municipal project and the timeline and the approval process for funding for our side of a joint project. So thanks to all of you for giving it the old college try. John, do you want to?
John Stover. I am a member of the Nantucket Hunting Association. And as I recall in our discussions, verbally or, well, it was pretty much all verbal, I asked specifically if after the CR, the permitting was done with the state, if we could have a start time after that. So whenever that date occurred, we would have a start time a year later, 2 years later, whatever you folks decided, and you said no to it, just to be clear.
Is that, so I have a question, that, I don't quite understand that. Yeah, so,
So I'll try to explain the
Yeah.
misunderstanding.
yeah,
And the town will not invoke the conservation restriction until the DPW facility was funded. Because if we had to redesign the site for a different municipal use, or that once you execute the CR, you're tied to the way you've designed it. And without town meeting approval for the DPW facility, we weren't going to execute the CR. So the timeline was dependent on town meeting approval for the funding. So it was always going to be tied to that, and that's where we were tied together on timeline jointly. And I apologize if there was a misunderstanding around that in the way it was communicated. But at no point was there our ability to say, if the DPW site funding doesn't happen, that the Hunting Association could move forward, because we would have to go back to redesign before we put the CR on. And so this was always going to kick the timeline down the road. And I'm sorry if there was misunderstanding, John, on that, honestly. And so.
yeah, so I thought, so I might have misunderstood John then. I agree that we shouldn't be, that, that we should get this approved. But I thought misunderstood you maybe, John. I thought you were saying you might want more time after. You're not saying that. You say you want to do it. You'd have to come here to say, yeah. Yeah, because I think the town, like, I'm disappointed that we haven't, I think we were really close. I'm disappointed we didn't get there.
We were
Yeah.
that close.
Yeah, so that's,
And the stumbling block truly was not having a firm date to start. Now, that's kind of a misnomer, because the question that I thought, to this board was, once the CR is actually obtained, what's our start date after that? I don't care what the CR is for. Let's say, doesn't matter to me at all. DPW project, park fields, I don't care. Whatever that CR is, that's the time that we mark how much longer it is before we start. And your answer was no. No way, no how. That's not right.
I don't understand. I still don't understand what you mean. My understanding is if we got a CR, that we would do it, if we got a CR and we got the money approved, we would start building on the timeline we had, and you would start building on your timeline. Is that
Madam Chair,
wonderful?
may I add a little
Just-
bit to this too?
I'm very confused.
Okay,
Yeah.
first of all, let's try to
All right,
do this in a
sorry,
more
three.
organized fashion, because I don't mind a more informal
Right.
conversation in the select board, but when we get to the point where we're
Yeah.
arguing with each other in a
When there's
way, I
four
want
of
it to
us?
be a little
Okay, yes.
more organized. So the timeline is, we design a DPW facility and a hunting association facility jointly. We go to MIPA and we get sort of a thumbs up
Yep.
on the plan. DPW facility goes to town meeting for funding. If it gets approved, we execute a CR, the Hunting Association and the DPW are constructed on the timeline. The problem is if the DPW, this is where we ran into a sticking point. If town meeting does not approve the DPW facility, then we go back to the drawing board on the site design. And that is where your project is tied to whatever we do there. And we could not give you a time to start because we wouldn't know what other municipal use or what design. And we start that process over again. We revise the MIPA application. We get a thumbs up. We get funding for whatever alternative use it is from the municipality. Then we execute the CR, and then your project moves forward. So that giving you guys a date certain to move forward is not possible at this time because it is dependent on funding for whatever municipal purpose is on the 7.9 acres. Does that make sense?
Madam Chair, Steve, it does, and I think what we were going with was, can't the town, since we had to come up and pick our footprint and lock into our footprint, then why couldn't the town lock into their footprint that works for the DPW, go ahead and file the MIPA and commit to that footprint? And then if the DPW did not get approved, you could use that same footprint for an alternate use. You would have to live with that footprint that was designed for the DPW. It may not be changeable, or you'd have to wait the 5 years to change it. But why couldn't you just put it in so that we can continue with our project instead of waiting another 5, 10 years? And then, I'm sorry, but we have had a lot of bad luck with delays and the rug being pulled out from underneath us. So we have a distrust. And waiting another 3, 5 years with putting our support behind everything and trying to raise funds and do fundraising for a shooting range that may never happen, and then the DPW takes a little delays, 2027, what other reason is going to be coming up that all of a sudden now there's another priority for the town? And I'm sorry, you can't have the shooting range at all now. And that was what we saw. That's what we saw this going down that road.
Yeah.
And that's why we stepped back and stepped away.
So to answer the question, and Drew is probably going to help me with this, that even if we lock in the outline of the area, the permitting depends on what you're putting there. For the same reasons we needed to know what your building design was and what you were going to do on the space. We cannot allow you to a part of the project to move forward without a permit for the entire site development because of the segmentation. So allowing the Hunting Association to move forward, even if we use the same square footage or the same plot, we would, by segmentation, we would not be allowed to redesign the use of our 7.9 acres for 5 years. And the town cannot subject ourselves to that delay. In the same way, that's why we needed your stuff now, because otherwise you guys would have had to wait 5 years after we got the permit for ours. So it's confusing and complicated, but it's about closing doors for the municipal use on the site for a period of time that this board was not comfortable doing. Drew, did I get that? Is there any clarification you need?
Yeah, I just wanted to add just quickly, I'm glad you brought up the segmentation because that's a big part of it. I mentioned at the end that we now need to figure out what we're doing at the 1.1. But the conservation restriction is permanent in perpetuity, forever, and cannot be revised. And that is why the town is obviously very reluctant to put a CR on the parcel if the town is not 100% sure that it works for the town's need, whatever that need may be, if it's not a DPW, if it's not XYZ. So again, though, I think the process was and kind of had to be holistically. The parcel all needs to be permitted and designed and planned together, whether that's DPW, shooting range, recreation, a big swimming pool, whatever it is, it needs to be considered at this stage. So I think to John's question, it was if we had a CR, when could you start? It could have been tomorrow after the CR, but the town was just not going to want to put a CR on a parcel if the town was not sure what the parcel was going to be used for. Because there is no going back. It is in perpetuity. forever. So, yeah.
So I think the way, John, you've described this request is really not any commitment to a date certain in any way.
Correct.
So that's,
The only certainty is the amount of time after you actually get the permitting. Once that gets the thumbs up, how long will it take for us to be able to build a facility? That's my question. And that's what I asked, because that does give us some certainty that we're going to be able to start. Right now, the way it was left in the MOU that we were discussing for months, there's no timeline there for us to start at all, other than if this project goes forward, then other things will fall into place and our project would be able to go forward as well. There's always the possibility that it doesn't go well at town meeting and something else is going to happen, whatever that is. You may come back, I don't know, whatever you do. And, you have every right to do all of that. And I'm not trying to slow that down or stop it in my comment anyway. All I'm saying is that once that process is done and you actually get the approval of the town to go forward with a facility, whatever that facility is, you'll have the permits in hand, and I would like to be able to start sometime after that, some fixed time. A month, a year, 2, something reasonable, but at least let us have a firm start date relative to getting that permitting.
so the question is the permitting for what?
Yeah.
If
Well,
it's
you're gonna-
not the DPW facility, the clock starts all over again on how the town is going to use the 7.9 acres. So I was hearing you guys asking for some
A date certain.
certainty, and what I made clear is we cannot offer certainty, and that's where things came to a
Speaking
dead
for
end.
myself, I would say I don't have a problem with that. The only certainty is that after the permitting is actually achieved, whatever it's for, we get a start date, some time period after that.
Madam Chair, am I missing something here? Because once there's a CR obtained for whatever, okay, they can start. That's the date, yes?
Correct.
Right.
And they were asking for certain years. They were talking at 2027 or some time period after 2027, and we could not commit to that.
To me, the specific date is when the CR is approved, whatever. And hopefully, it would be for the best for the town and best for the hunting association, the earliest possible to have what's planned here and what's their planned approved to go forward.
May I make a comment? We would like this project to move forward. Somehow, we should be able to figure out how to do it. When two minds want to come together, they come together.
Again, Madam Chair, am I missing something? I'm hearing the two minds are together. Are they not? We're saying that once the CR is approved, everything, the town will go ahead and you'll go ahead. So that's a specific date, right? Whatever that date is, it's a specific date when the CR is approved.
And it has no guaranteed timeline.
There's no guaranteed time.
That is correct. And that is, I was hearing a request for a guaranteed timeline for a start date, and I was clear that we cannot offer that. I'm hearing something a little different tonight from what I was hearing before.
Yeah, Madam Chair.
So-
Steve, yeah, the way Malcolm, I understand it is that if the DPW didn't go through, it was now a different usage. The town was going to hold off on submitting the final MEPA or getting the final CR, and they would have to go back to National Heritage and change the usage. And then, until that happened, but the town could sit and decide, well, now we don't know what we want to use it for. It could take another 5 years to decide what they want to use it for before they go back to National Heritage and get that CR. So it was unknown when that CR would ever be put in place. And what are we supposed to do? Sit there on a dream, waiting another 20 years and not be able to raise funds and bring people on board? So that was why we walked away. But that's our hangup, is that there's no date that CR would ever happen.
are the 2 points, should the 2 points be of a positive vote at town meeting and a CR?
We,
Like, I'm just asking.
okay.
Because my concern is that some of your members will come to town meeting and vote against this, hoping to get this land, the whole piece of land. That's that's my concern. And so I think that we, from a political standpoint, we have to be aligned, because the town needs to do this. We can't continue to have the DPW out at the existing site. So in my view, if we're aligned and get that through and get your facility through, and it's done in 3 years, 4 years, whatever, what is it, 27? Isn't that the goal? Well, that was the goal, I thought, of the negotiation. So am I missing something?
That would work if the DPW went through it, and then, 2027 would be the timeframe.
The difficulty is if it doesn't go
If it
through.
doesn't go through, we're left with no
That is
project.
where we got stuck.
Yeah.
Right.
But we don't have a guarantee that this is going to go through either. So I look at it like neither of us do, and so how, we can't, and if yours goes through, we're stuck for 5 years. So I think the goal is to get them both to go through. If I'm missing, am I right?
Hold on, Malcolm?
Yes, now, as a member of the association and as a select person, I'm sympathetic to both causes. It seems clear the town needs a range. The town needs a new facility. Now, it's probably not the ideal place, but there is no ideal place. There's no ideal place, period. So in the simple mind, we have to take what we have. So we have a potential of the two groups being together. And as my colleague says, I'm afraid it'll get voted down because a lot of people will be sympathetic to the association and think somehow they've had a bad deal. If we want something, then we need to work together and make sure this gets approved, and then you'll have your date. I mean, what else can I say? I have no more to say.
My only other comment.
Hold on, I'm going to let John. John?
Yeah, my only other comment is
No, Matt, wait, John.
You want me to speak?
Yes, please.
Okay. I was just going to say that I've worked through some difficult situations in contracting before, and one of the things we could do in a case like this is put more faith in the town, the Board of Select persons, to actually work this deal and actually achieve a date by, say, 2027. But we could use a phrase such as using your best efforts. This is what you want. It's what we want. Why can't we make this happen? It's what we want.
And my comment is, I think we want this to happen. Brooke wants this to happen. We all do. I think I think the fact that the town was going to pick up the tab on the road and utilities and everything was a good faith showing of that. I also believe that is extremely valuable. The town in the town doing the legal work on some of the other stuff, which I know you guys have already spent, was a recognition for how much you've already spent. So when we've discussed it, that our recognition is that you have had a tough road, and so I think that's what we were trying to do. So.
Well, let me put it as clearly as I can, right? The outcome of not signing the MOU because you don't have a date certain means you don't have access to the land at all. So had you signed the MOU, we would be working on this together, and we would be trying our level best to move both projects forward simultaneously. I honestly did not understand. I understand not wanting to accept that it might not happen in a timely manner. And I explained that 6 ways from Sunday, why we cannot encumber that property, the 1.1 acres for you, until we have an approved use and funding for our property. And that timeline is uncertain, and I get it, but But in the end, not accepting that reality closed the door for you guys in a way that I find very unfortunate. I would not have preferred to have it that way. But we could not provide you certainty that you wanted. But the end result here is that the opportunity's gone. That doesn't really make sense to me from your point of view, but that's the conclusion that you guys came to. I was frankly really surprised after all this time we spent really trying to make this work, that was the outcome. That's not what I wanted. I wouldn't have sat in meetings every Friday for 5 months if I weren't committed to making this happen for you guys. But I also, this board and the community cannot encumber that property in a way that gives you a timeline to move forward until we know what we're doing. And at the very least, signing the MOU starts the process, captures that site for you guys, even with the uncertainties. And it's a bit of a rock and a hard place, and I get it. But we are not, as Nat Lowell says, we're not making more dirt, and we have growing municipal demands, and the mitigation requirements for all, future town needs means that this is an incredibly valuable parcel of land that we need for really critical municipal purposes. So, I'm truly disappointed that this didn't end up in a place where we could work together. So, I lobbied really hard for you guys. So I think that's probably about all I can say tonight.
I think Drew, want
to? Is somebody online? Sorry.
Matt Peel. Do you want?
Yeah, go ahead, Matt Peel.
Hi, thank you. Well, I was going to say something, but it sounds like this is kind of a done deal now, and unfortunately, they lost the opportunity. I'm not a member of the hunting association, but I just, I think Matt and Malcolm were really touching on some great points there. I don't think Brooke quite understands how the high regard that the hunting association is held in on this island. It didn't pass before because I think a lot of people felt that the hunting association was getting jerked around a little bit. And I think now it's going to have a even more difficult time passing because of that. And that's very unfortunate. It's hunters are extremely important on this island, whether people want to admit it or not. And, the biggest hit this island could take is if the hunters took a year off and see what happens without the deer population control. I mean, it's they boycotted for a year. This island would be torn to pieces. And tick disease and Lyme disease would go through the roof. But it's very unfortunate you guys could make a deal. So,
thanks, Matt. Okay. Appreciate everything you've said, you guys. All right.
I have one more question. Can we not, is there not a path? Are we past a date? I guess it's a Drew question or are we past? I know we put a date on it, and partly we put a date on it because, we need to move forward. So.
Yeah, that's the tough part, right? Like we, to Brooke and their point, we worked for almost 6 months every week trying to move this thing forward. We wanted to submit permits months ago. And we're kind of at the point where, like I said, I think I mentioned earlier, it's not quite on the critical path, but it's literally right around the corner. Our intent is to get something filed sooner than later. Otherwise, the decision will be made for us. It won't work with the timeline intended. We did it, not to belabor this point, but we did a cost estimate prior to schematic design very rough, but it's pretty effective. How many dollars per square foot multiplied by the square footage? And it came out to $63.5 million. We refined the design, and a year later did the cost estimate. It's $67.7 million. Every year we wait, it's going to cost $5 or $10 million more. And once again, the decision will be made for us. It'll be too expensive. It won't be justifiable. And so I don't want to speak for the board. It's kind of the, what is our plan? You guys are the Board of Public Works. So, in conversations with you previously, it was kind of decided that we had to put a date on this, and it was yes or no. We either move forward jointly, obviously with risk on both sides, or we don't. And unfortunately, to Brooke's point, it was really unfortunate. We spent a lot of time working on this, and I know that the board and Brooke and everyone at the DPW understands the importance of the hunting association, a safe shooting range, a facility for the youth and police and other things. But at some point, we may be in a situation where we get neither thing, and that's, I don't know, a risk that we, as a board, as a community, want to take. So that's just kind of my take on it. We can talk about this for the next 10 years, but then again, we'll all end up with nothing, So, and that's, at some point, it's go time. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to close the conversation. It's 8:30 and we're not done. We have a couple more agenda items.